Welcome back to another video. Today was round 6 of Sunway Formentera. I just finished my game and the game was pretty crazy once again. So what happened? Let's talk about it. I faced Brandon Jacobson, international master from the US, and he is rated 2431. So quite a tough opponent once again. Let's see what happened. On move 1, my opponent played e4. And I was surprised already. So my opponent plays a lot of different openings on move 1, especially. Admittedly, most of the games were from Title Tuesday, where I've also seen moves such as f3, which is really funny to see. But the main moves were e4, d4, knight of 3, or I believe, or c4 or something. And basically, I thought my opponent is probably going to prepare against with d4 and one of the openings that I play against this or something. And yeah, I thought that my opponent would play d4. I was so sure about this. So I was really well prepared against d4 today. But then my opponent plays e4. And I thought, I was really surprised because I like to believe that my French defense is pretty solid, and I know quite a bit about this opening, so I was really surprised to see that my opponent was trying to search me in the French defense. And I played the French, of course. d4, d5, knight c3. I believe when I checked his games, he mostly played knight d2, so this was also once again a surprise. But yeah, I didn't really prepare much. I thought if he plays e4, we'll be in the French, and I feel confident here. So I wasn't too concerned. But after knight c3, knight f6, e5, knight d7, knight ce2 was played. And I thought, oh, that is one move that is not played as much. At least f4 is played most of the times, and leads to slightly different positions. Knight c2 with the idea that after c5, you play the move c3. And usually, white plays the move f4, knight of 3, and starts attacking on the king side pretty easily. And it's a bit difficult for black to figure out what to do. You need to start defending quite a bit, and you need to find a clever way to handle this position. I played move knight c6, and after knight f3, I was a bit surprised to see that my opponent went for knight f3, because this is the moment that you can play the move f4, and yeah, after that you can play knight f3 and things are perfectly fine for white. But now with knight f3 being played, I was really surprised that, this pawn is not going to move. Perhaps with the idea that this knight will jump to f4 instead, and maybe knight h5 or something in the future will be played for an attack. So I spent a little bit of time to try to figure out what to do here, and I came up with the idea to play b5. And it's not the most ideal move. Apparently queen b6 is perfectly fine. Black wants to take the pawn on d4 and then play f6. I wasn't entirely sure where I was going with these ideas. So yeah, I thought the pawn a6 would be weakened, but turns out that is completely fine. I played b5 and I thought I need to start attacking on the queen side, because that's the reason why I thought, usually the knight stays on c3 to not allow b5 so easily, right? But now with the knight on e2, it makes logically sense to put the pawn on b5. So then a3 was played, I took on d4, takes, b4. I'm simply trying to open up the queen side because, yeah, when trades happen over there, especially if a queen trade happens, that is oftentimes good for me, because then my opponent does not have an attack on the king side. And oftentimes in the French defense, you want to trade the queens when you're playing the black pieces. So my opponent played a4, I played bishop a6 because I would love to trade either the knight or the bishop for my light squared bishop. g3 was played, and here queen b6. So I'm basically preparing to play b3. If necessary, then the knight comes in, or maybe bishop b4 check can be played, something like this. And then my opponent went for knight f4. So in this situation, I thought, okay, I'm seeing some interesting ideas. I really wanted to play b3, right? But I didn't play this. And the reason why is because after bishop takes, queen takes, I thought I'm simply dropping the pawn on b3. So yeah, I thought that's a waste. Turns out there is a very good opportunity for me here to play g5. Really strong move. And the idea is simple. You try to grab that pawn on d4, and it looks very strange when you look at it this way. How am I capturing the pawn on d4? Well, if this knight captures the pawn on g5, then I can take on d4 and white is in trouble. So after g5, let's say the knight moves somewhere, knight to d3, you can then play g4, and on the next move you take on d4. So that would have been a really good opportunity for me to strike, and yeah, that would mean that after b3, white is not in trouble, but it's looking a little bit uncomfortable over here. And then white needs to start including moves such as a5 in the position, because taking is very dangerous, right? There's so much happening on the a file. You don't want to face bishop takes, queen takes, and then let's say bishop d2 or something. The knight is pinned and you will lose it. So yeah, basically a5 has to then be played, and you have to be so careful here with white. So that was a really good opportunity for me to, gain the lead in the game. But now I played bishop takes f1. And the reason why is because, well, first of all, the bishop is soon heading to g2, so I want to trade those bishops off. Or maybe the bishop goes to d3 or something, I don't know. And second of all, so that's why I want to trade right now. And second of all, after king takes f1, I was so sure about the move g5. And this is the start of disaster. Because, as you can see from the eval bar, this is simply super bad. And I didn't realize this. I thought this was so good, because it's a very typical move in the French. And as you saw in the other line, g5 was really good over there. But the problem here is I'm not ready for it, because knight takes g5, queen takes d4, queen h5. Very strong move. And admittedly, when I played g5, I didn't see this. But then when I played it, I thought, oh, okay, my opponent's probably going to play queen h5. And I thought with the king still sort of in the center, one of the knights heading to e5, I thought I was going to have some really nice attack going here. Knight c takes e5. I took with this knight because I want to prepare some sort of knight f6 move. He took on e6 with the f knight. I thought knight g takes e6 would have been better, but turns out that knight f takes e6 is much better. I gave a check on c4, so I'm also covering knight c7. So that cannot be played anymore. King g2, only move, by the way. Makes sense, right? Where else do you go? Knight f6, I'm attacking the queen. And I thought, okay, I like this. The queen has to go to h3, because basically if the queen goes elsewhere, I'm taking the knight on e6, and yeah, looks really good for me. But after queen h3, the problem is that I can't take, because after queen takes e6, check, I'm losing my knight, one of the knights, and my king is in huge trouble over here. So I can't really take on e6. Then what? What do we do? So I play knight fg4. I'm cutting off the queen from the knight. So basically now I'm threatening to capture the knight. And as my opponent spent quite some time here, about 20 minutes, I started to realize that there are some moves that are actually quite difficult to deal with. And one of the moves was the brilliant move bishop f4. What a move! I saw this move when my opponent was spending some time, and I thought, okay, I see what's going on here, but it was not reason for me to believe that I could possibly be worse here. I thought I'm the one that is in the driver's seat because that knight is still hanging. I have some attack going on. These knights are so good, well placed in the center. This queen h3 is so bad, and I thought that my opponent has no attack. But, well, of course, I was proven wrong, because so I was struggling a lot here. I was here down to 29 minutes, and I was not entirely sure what the move is. I thought I was completely winning here, or at least slightly better, or maybe some zeros engine line or something, but I couldn't really figure it out. I thought, wait, there's so many threats happening, because the idea behind bishop f4 is that my opponent wants to take on e5, get rid of one of those knights, and then put a rook on e1 and simply start attacking towards my king. So that's why I thought, okay, I need to capture that knight off the board. Bishop takes e5, and here I was thinking, okay, either I play rook g8, or I was thinking of queen e2. So not that, here. The idea behind queen e2 is simple. You threaten checkmate. It's great, right? And yeah, that's why the rook is not hanging on h8. But I didn't like this for the simple reason that there's bishop d4. And I thought, okay, yeah, I don't really make much progress here. And then in the next few moves, the queen simply enters, and my king is just not safe at all. And rook e1 is also incoming. So yeah, I was a little bit upset about this. So that's why I played rook g8. And then the check came on the board, which was also the only move to maintain the advantage with white. Rook g6, rook h e1, bishop e7, and here I'm already down to 30 seconds because I basically spent all my time in the last few moves and I didn't have time left anymore, and I started to realize that maybe I could be losing here. There is a possibility that I'm lost here, but I don't want to admit it. Knight takes e6 was played, queen c2, I'm threatening to take on f2, bishop d4, and this was basically the moment that I realized that I may actually lose this game in a few moves. Because the attack simply died out. I don't have any access anymore in my opponent's position. I don't have any access to that. So I play king d7 to get out of the pin to threaten some rook h6 somewhere. But then queen takes d5 check, the pawn falls and is also attacking my rook. Bishop d6, knight c5 check, king c7, queen b7, and here I thought, okay, it's enough. I've seen enough. I mean, the funny thing is that I thought that queen takes a8 was going to be played if I move my king to d8, right? But then, without having it played, I realized, okay, like, actually, a few seconds before resigning, I realized that there's a checkmate. So then I was like, okay, it's fine, I resign. So yeah, that was a really tough game. I basically did it all by myself. I did all of it. I did all of it wrong. And, well, not all of it, but I basically was the one making mistakes, and my opponent played really well countering those mistakes, or at least punishing them. And yeah, I just didn't really play well. I mean, I was really happy about the opening. I felt like the opening stage was really good. I was feeling really confident, but maybe that confidence was actually what backfired today, because that's why I played this move g5, and that was actually basically the one mistake in the game. Because had I not played g5 there and simply continued developing, let's say, bishop e7 and then considered g5, that would have been completely different. But for some reason, I was in a rush. I should have spent more time in this position to try to understand what's best and play a little less risky and reckless over here. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one to deal with, but we live and we learn. It's a really good learning lesson for me. I feel like I learned a lot just from this game already. And yeah, I'm pretty happy about how the opening went. It's just really sad that right after the opening, things went downhill quickly. So I need to work on that. And yeah, I'm happy that it was a really fun game still. And I'm happy that I made it interesting. And yeah, next time I will take care of g5 and make sure that I played at the right time. So yeah, it's a bit sad because I did see all the moves. I did see the moves. I did see b3, but I didn't calculate it well enough. So yeah. Anyway, that was round 6, guys. A tough one, as I said, but I learned a lot, even if it was a very short game. My opponent had a perfect game, 99% accuracy. So yeah, really well played. And we go to the next game with still the same confidence, maybe a little less. Maybe a little bit more caution is required in the next game. Anyway, that was it for today. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next video.